How's it going, everybody? This podcast is sponsored by Firecracker Farm by Alex Bonamar and his family, growing hot peppers out of Florida. As you can see, I've got the salt here in the background of the studio, right in here for you guys. This is the brick. It's got three kings in it. It's sea salt infused with ghost pepper, scorpion, and reaper. Really good product. I've been using it for a couple of years, even before he sponsored the podcast. And now I'm proud to announce a flavor that I inspired um, Alex to make, which is the new yuzu hot salt from Firecracker Farm. You can get it now at firecracker.farm. I have it promo code for discount. It's Food Origins Pod C. Again, for 10% off. Uh, Food Origins Pod C. You'll get one of these awesome push grinders, and it'll also come with a refill if you get the bundle. So appreciate you guys. Alex, thank you for sponsoring the podcast. Shout out to Eddie Gallagher, who I found out about Firecracker Farm from, and appreciate that. And if you guys take a look at their website, you'll see recipes I have on the website as well. All the different kinds of stuff I've been making with it. And 10% of the proceeds go to Pipe Hitter Foundation and Operation 300. Guys are all into it. A lot of them have Toyotas or Jeeps, and so like it's that whole community is all about getting outdoors and then of course camping and cooking and
Yeah.
all that stuff ties all together. But starting the recording is going, so just making sure everything's good. You can hear me okay now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, perfect. Right on. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Food Origins Podcast. Today, my guest is Jacob Gonzalez. He was Coast Guard, and now he runs Fire and Dough, an awesome pizza food truck out here in the Flathead Valley. Jacob, thanks for being on, man. Appreciate you taking your time out and sharing your story.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. I appreciate you having me, man.
And first off, the easy thing is, tell us your background, your ethnicity, where you grew up, and all that good stuff.
Yeah, so my background is actually Cuban and Colombian. That's where the last name kind of Gonzalez comes in, actually, my dad's side. I grew up in Central Florida, born and raised, and then after that, I joined the Coast Guard. This was probably 12, 13 years ago now. My first duty station was in Key West. I've done stationed on a couple cutters out there. And then after that, went to North Carolina, did a bunch of other like temporary units stuff in Baltimore, Virginia, California. Ended up going to an air station in Clearwater, Florida. And then my last duty station before we got out was actually in Cape Disappointment, which is on Oahu, Washington. And yeah, that's the real name. It's kind of, I tell people that, they're like, that doesn't sound real. But
Yeah,
yeah, it's in Oahu, Washington. We lived in Astoria, Oregon, which is a beautiful little town right across the Columbia River. So yeah,
awesome.
that's kind of quick
But
little
I'm gonna
background
back
there.
it up a little bit. You kind of went fast, and we'll back it up
Yeah.
to kind of what was it like growing up in Florida, and what'd you eat growing up there?
Yeah, so Florida is the beautiful thing about Florida is it's a melting pot of all kinds of cultures. I mean, you can find almost anything here. And growing up with a Cuban and Colombian background, the Cuban side is my grandmother's side, my mom's side. So and that's really kind of, I think, where I guess, no pun intended, but my food origin really started. So we ate a lot of Cuban food growing up, and I do actually miss that a lot. So, obviously, typical rice and beans. One of my favorite things, nostalgia for me, is a guava and cheese pastry, which is like called like a guava con queso pastelito, and that's pretty much a puff pastry filled with a guava and then a cream cheese, and then it's in a puff pastry and just kind of puffs up. Super crunchy, sweet. It's really sweet, actually. It's really good. I love plantains, things like that. Pico de gallo, things, ropa vieja. So we kind of grew up eating a lot of that stuff. Absolutely loved it. And my grandma's the one who really kind of, I think, really got me into food. And yeah, I'm actually at her house right now doing this. Where I came to visit her for Thanksgiving and stuff. And she's since I've been little, she's never changed with the amount of food that she likes to cook, how much she's cooking. Like right now, she's asking me, how we've only got 30, we got 30 people coming over. She's like, I don't know if I have enough food. And we've got 70 pounds of protein, not including the sides. And I'm like, you're going to be fine. Like, now, so
Yeah.
she just busted out another 10-pound pork chops. So she's always been the huge on just getting everyone together. I remember when I was little, always kind of being in the kitchen with her, always showing me stuff. Of course, she never told me recipes about anything. She was like, you just smell it and you just dump it in there. And if it, you trial and error. And that kind of resonated through my mom a lot too, actually, growing up. My mom rarely cooked the same dish twice. She just, and no, there's no recipes. Everything is, I guess you want to call it love. Everything is, we're going to make this fish, we're going to make this pasta, we're going to make this bread. We're just going to kind of wing it and just things should go right. Sometimes they didn't, but most of the time it was always good. So that kind of inspiration of like just really feeling it when you cook, I think comes a lot from them. So
Yeah,
yeah,
a lot of putting all that love in there too.
yeah, yeah. So it's good, man. So growing up in Florida was awesome. I went to Various High School, so that's real Central Florida. That's like an hour north of Orlando. No one's ever heard of it.
Okay.
Whenever everyone's asking like, "Oh, where are you from in Florida?" I just say Orlando or the Ocala area. But so then after that, when I graduated high school, I didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life. So my dad was actually the one who was like, "You should join the Coast Guard." He had a buddy at the time that was in, and of course, he was like super high up at the time. He was already 25 years in. He was a Master Chief, and of course, he made the life sound amazing. Which we'll get to that, but it was the whole military thing. And so when I was like, "Oh yeah," so met with recruiter, joined. Went to boot camp, and then my first station out of that was actually the Coast Guard Cutter Mohawk in Key West, Florida. So the 270. I was on there for about a year and a half, and then I got transferred to a 110, which was actually just right in the same area, which is another 110-foot cutter. I was on there, became a machinery technician, which is an MK, and then after that, that boat got decommissioned after 8 months, which honestly, thank God. That boat rode so bad. Never got seasick in my life ever until I was on that boat. It was absolutely terrible. It was terrible. I remember actually the cook on the boat every time before we departed, he would make everyone. He would just give everyone ice cream sandwiches. He's like, just eat like 4 or 5 of these, because this is gonna sound disgusting, but when you throw that up, it doesn't hurt because it's not as like acidic. And anyways, so
Yep.
after 8 months, that boat got decommed, and then I moved to another cutter out in North Carolina. I was actually Queen of the Fleet at the time, the Smilax. That was awesome, man. That was a construction tender. We just punched buoys, rebuilt things in the ICW. That was a ton of fun. We did a lot of welding, fabrication. Didn't even really wear the uniform that much. It was just like coveralls and muck boots. And then every day, our captain, we would just pull into a bar and just like drink, eat food. Like, so we got to go up and down the ICW, eating different foods, different bars, meeting a bunch of different people, and then just punching in at 7 a.m. I'm back on the boat working. And then after that, I actually switched careers a little bit. So after that, I actually became an SK in the Coast Guard, and then I went to school for that, which is out in Petaluma, California. And then once I
What is
grad,
an S
so an SK is it stands for storekeeper, but it's like a logistics specialist. So anything you do with like contracting, money, purchasing, purchase orders, things like that, that's in the realm of what they do. So I switched to that after school. I got stationed at Air Station Clearwater back in Florida. That was a blast, ton of fun there. Built a house and we lived in for a year. I remember, and then I when I ranked up after being there for about 6 months, and we had just built this house. The detailer called me. He was like, "Hey, you're gonna move." I said, "Oh man, I just got here." He's like, "Yeah, you're probably gonna transfer out." So I talked to my boss, and he was like, "No, no, you're gonna stay here. Don't worry about it. Like, we got you." I said, "Okay." And as that works, all the picks of where you want to go start to diminish because people are choosing them. So what's left is the bottom of the barrel. So I was talking to my boss, like, "Hey, there ain't much left. Are you sure I'm staying here? Because if not, I need to put something in." And he's like, "No, no, you're gonna be fine. You're gonna be fine. You're gonna stay here." So needless to say, he came out. He's like, "Yeah, you got to move. You're gonna have to. You're gonna have to pick something and move." It's like, damn it, man. We built our house. We had just been living in it for 6 months, and it was like Michigan, Alaska, which I would have loved to go to Alaska, and then the Cape Disappointment, which was like I put that at the last. Like that doesn't even sound remotely amazing. I'm just gonna put that at the bottom. As soon as I submitted it, he within I think 10 minutes he sent me orders back saying you're going to Cape Disappointment. Come to find out, they had a short fill there, so it was a what do they call that? Just like an emergency billet. So they hadn't had an SK there for like a year. So he was just waiting for someone to put that on the list, and he was just gonna, punch it. So he did, which was whatever. So I remember calling my wife and I was like, "Hey, we got orders. We're going to Cape Disappointment." She's like, "Ah, yeah, that's funny. Like, where are we really going?" I'm like, "No, I'm serious. You can Google it." And it was yeah. So we, we ended up packing all of our stuff up. We transferred out there. Ended up being the best unit I've ever lived. I've lived at. The place is just. If anyone's ever going off the coast and you head up Astoria, Walker, Washington, the whole 101 all the way up is some of the most. It's just amazing out there. The scenery, the outdoors, the mountains, the trees. Camping is huge out there. We actually really got into that. That's actually kind of what drove us. That area drove us to move to Montana. So we had a Jeep Gladiator and we had a king size rooftop tin on it, 35s and like 2-inch lift, winch, steel bumpers, fenders because I actually broke them off roading, and we just went camping every single weekend. It was awesome. So long story short, once we got out, my wife wanted to travel. We didn't really know where we wanted to settle. Well, I guess that I was actually I'll back up a little bit because that's kind of where the pizza thing started. So my last 2 years in, I used to, I welded and fabricated and did things here and there. So I actually built my first little pizza oven. It was a steel little suitcase looking steel box that I welded together and put a pizza stone in it and a little chimney out the back and all that stuff. And I was like, oh, what's the first thing we should cook? And I was like, oh, let's just do a pizza. And at this time, I cook homemade pastas, breads, different country loaves, just all kinds of stuff I fooled around with. So I was like, oh, let's just cook a pizza. So Googled the most basic recipe, cooked it, came out terrible. I was like, this is absolutely terrible. I was like, I can't live with that. So I was like, if I'm gonna do it, we're gonna do it right. So I just kept doing it, and I just kept failing. It was I just could not get it right. I mean, most of the foods, I'm not gonna say like, I knocked out of the park as some like high-end restaurant chef or something, but most foods we tackle, I really, really get into it, like homemade pastas and different breads. And it usually takes me a few tries, and then I get it to the point where I'm like, okay, this is good, right? This is good. We can just kind of build off this foundation and keep going better. The pizza was the only thing I could not get better. I just could not do it right. So the passion for the pizza really I fell in love with the whole like FU towards it. Cause like I'm gonna fucking get this eventually.
Yeah.
And then I started really diving in, going on forums, talking to other pizzaiolos and like just really seeing different styles of pizzas. And then I came across Neapolitan and I just thought it was a work of art. I was like, the style of this pizza is just beautiful. The charring, the little bubbles, cooking in wood fired oven, like this is just amazing. And so we got into that, and that took so long. So I was in my garage, and at the time I was just cooking this in my house. Like I wasn't selling it or nothing like that. Had a nice little mixer in my oven and stuff. So it took me about 2 years of just trial and error to get my dough and sauce recipes down. Of just making them every weekend when I wasn't on duty, wasn't working, and it just became a real passion of like kind of like a fuck you to the pizza. Like you're not gonna win this, like. And I fell in love with it's the most challenging food to me, in my opinion, that I've ever made. The process from how the dough is kneaded to when you pull it out and then letting it rest. Like there's steps of everything. The funny thing is like most of the time with a lot of dishes, unless you're getting like really, really complicated with it, you don't really get the answer until the end when the product comes out. And it's like,
Right.
well, this didn't come out right. It's like, okay, well, where in the step did you mess up to fix that? So you have to kind of backtrack. Like the first real hard thing was the dough, getting the dough right. That took a long time. So then that's when I discovered like learning different styles of wheat, where it's grown, how it's milled, the fineness of the grain, or the milling process, the protein content, fermentation times, glycemic index, all that stuff kind of fell into place. And I just started tinkering with all of it. Salt percentages, yeast percentages, hydration percentages, which is a big one. Um, and that's when I found the Caputo brand, which is milled and grown out of Naples, Italy. And that's still the flour we use today. So all of our flour, all of our dough, our flour is milled and grown in Naples, Italy by the Caputo family. And we use a specific Tipo 00, their Neapolitan. It's not really a blend, but it's their Neapolitan style flour, which has a really high protein content, which I'll kind of get into later on why that's super important. for making good pizza, in my opinion. Well, Neapolitan style pizza, anyways. So once we did that, we just yeah, we just started hammering. I was making nothing crazy. It was like 20, 30 pizzas a weekend, and I was just giving them away or selling them to like family in the area or I'm sorry, friends in the area. And it was like, a couple, whatever it cost me. They're like, yeah, I'll give you $5, a couple bucks for it at the time, whatever. And then eventually I got my dough right. It was this probably about maybe 6, 7 months, and the dough started coming out right, but I still couldn't. My toppings and the sauce was terrible. It was like a soupy mess. It was just every time you'd stick the pizza peel turner and you pull it out, it was just sloshing everywhere. Couldn't figure that out, why that wasn't working. And then I reached out to someone who owned a pizza restaurant actually in Italy, and they were like, "Yeah, you need to strain your tomatoes as one." I didn't know that. They're like, when you get your tomatoes and you start hand crushing them, like you should strain some of that juice out of there, because if not, and this is where like I think Neapolitan really differs from a lot of pizza places, is that, and this is just my opinion, but when you cook a pizza in a 500, 600 degree conveyor belt oven or any type of oven, right? It's in there for a good 10, 12 minutes. Sometimes a little bit short, sometimes a little longer, but you allow some of the hydration or moisture that's in the dough, the cheese, and the sauce to evaporate. And as it comes out, that re-solidifies. And so when you get a nice pizza from somewhere and you cut into it, nothing is soupy, nothing's running everywhere, because some of that moisture has evaporated out of it. In my oven, my pizzas are in the oven for 90 seconds. So if we cook at 950 degrees, and there's no time for the hydration of any of those things to come out. Same thing with, we learned that with my cheese, which I guess I'll get into that. So we started straining my tomatoes, and then I actually hate tomatoes. Weirdly enough, I hate tomato sauce. Like one of my favorite dishes is spaghetti. I hate red sauce. I don't like red sauce spaghetti. So I was like, if I'm gonna make a pizza sauce, I want to make it where I like it, because if I like it, then anyone should like it.
Yeah.
So then I started doing a bunch of research on different tomatoes, and a real true Neapolitan style is using San Marzano tomatoes, which are green in like the Mount Vesuvio region in Italy as well, and volcanic soil makes them a little sweeter. So those are really, getting true certified San Marzano tomatoes in America is actually kind of difficult. A lot of places you'll see in stores will say style. I forgot the name. There's a really popular brand you can get out in California. They actually grow them in California, but it's style because it's not true. I don't know how much in different tastes they are, but it's not a true San Marzano tomato. So ours are. We actually they're certified, they're stamped. You can actually trace the can with the barcode number back to the farm they grew in and all that stuff. So we get our tomatoes from Italy as well. We ship them over. And, we strain them, use a hand crushing, and then a little bit of an emulsion blender, depending, just to get it a little chunky, nothing too thin, nothing too thick. So it spreads on the pizza nicely. And then, so that started working. So I was like, okay, the sauce is not soupy. It's a good consistency. And then we started messing around with cheese. And when you cook at a high temp like that, you can't use shredded cheese. Well, you can, but you need to shred it yourself, because the caking agencies and the cornstarch and stuff they put in like bag shredded cheese, it just lights on fire. It burns. It gets oily. It's not good. So then that's when we found the company Belgioso, which is an Italian cheese making company out of Wisconsin. They actually make a fresh, low moisture mozzarella, which is great, because if you use high fresh mozzarella, unless you put it on afterwards, it makes it super soupy, and the oils and a little bit of fat that's in the cheese will blend out when it's cooking. And it's not something most people notice it, but when you use this cheese and then you go back to using a normal cheese, you do taste it. You taste it, there's a consistency and difference. So I fell in love with that cheese. So we've been using that ever since. So it comes in a big, big log. We chop and dice it up and we put it on the cheese, and it just melts perfectly. Doesn't overcook, doesn't overchar, and just has like a nice pull to it when you eat it. Uh, but I had to learn to strain my cheese at first, because the cheese was doing the same thing, and I could not end up with a giant lake of liquid on the pizza when I pulled it out. So
Right.
those are two big things. And then even like something simple like when you make the dough balls and you put them in the crate, when you cut them out of the crate, how you take them out of the crate is important. If you just shove under it, you'll bunch it up, you'll create a knot under the dough, and then when you stretch and cook it, you'll bite into that knot. Either hopefully it's cooked, usually always is, but it's a little denser there. It's not like perfectly consistent throughout the crust. So just some little weird bit of challenges. I just fell in love with the pizza. I was like, man, this is really difficult. So once I thought I had mastered all those, my pizzas were kind of coming out pretty good. And I was probably I would say maybe almost a year in at this point. And I decided to upgrade my oven. And I was like, yeah, my oven's not doing. I don't think this is working out very well. So I bought an Uni Pro at the time, which is their old school like stainless steel one. And when I bought that and I cooked the pizza, I was like, this thing is a Ferrari. I was like, my oven sucks. Like this thing is totally different, which it was. It was awesome. We started doing that, and a place I was getting my haircut in town, Lindsay, she was my barber. She was awesome. Yeah, I always told her about it all. She's like, hey, if you want to bring me a pizza, I'll give you a free haircut. She's like, I love pizza. So I was like, all right, cool. So I did it. She loved it, and she's like, I'll give you free haircuts as long as you bring me pizza. I'm like, I don't care. So I was trading haircuts for pizza, and then her other barbers saw it and were like, yo, we can't give you haircuts because whatever, but we'll pay you for them. So I was like, okay, I'll just sell them to you, for a couple bucks or something. So I started doing that, and I was bringing like once a week. I was bringing like 15 pizzas to the shop, and then their clients started seeing, and it was all like downtown parking, kind of like in Calstone. So I'd park somewhere and I'd have like 15 boxes carrying down the street, and everyone's like, where'd you get that? I was like, oh, I just make them, and then people started giving me their numbers, and then he started passing them out to people, and I would just get random texts like, hey, I'd like to eat a pizza tomorrow, and so people would just come up to my driveway and I just have my garage door open, the Uni oven going, my prep station all there, and I would just run boxes out of pizza to people that would pull up, put it in their window, and they would leave. And that was going on for about 2 weeks, and it was actually really funny because I had a neighbor. She was walking one time, and I was in the garage, and she had walked by, and she was like, "Hey," and she was she was and she was like, "Hey, what are you doing in here?" I'm like, "Oh, I just make pizza." It's like, "Oh, that's what you're doing." I was like, "Yeah, what you think I was doing?" She's like, "Well, a lot of us." We just you get cash and run little tiny boxes out to random vehicles. And she's like, "The guy thought you were selling drugs." I'm like, "Oh shit!" I was like, "No, no." So that was kind of funny. And then, anyways, my barber told me, she's like, "Man, you should really join the Sunday market here." So Astoria has a Sunday market from Mother's Day to October. It yields around like 10,000 people on a weekend. It's huge. And she's like, "You should just try it." And I was like, "No, no, wait. Like, I'm not ready for that. Like, that's crazy." And my wife was the one who's like, "You know what? Fuck it. Like, let's just do it. Who cares? Like, what do you got to lose?" So I was like, "All right, you know what? Let's do it." So we bought a 10 by 10 tent. I bought another Uni oven because we needed to, like, pump out volume more. And Uni ovens are good. They are good, but in my personal opinion, they are not good for commercial use. Which that's not, they're not intended for that, right? So the problem with Uni ovens is they don't have a good heat retention. So once you get like 3 or 4 pipes to them, their heat really dies down. You can't maintain that 950 degrees or even 900. Maybe they've changed them now, but back then they didn't do that. So we had two of them, and I'd close the door on one, put one pizza in. I'm sorry, put a pizza in, and then when I pulled that one out, I'd close the door, then use the next one. So by the time the next one was done, the oven would kind of heat back up, and then I could rotate back and forth like that. And we also, at the time, we were offering garlic knots as well. And we had a really nice carbon steel pan by Made In, and we just throw the garlic knots in there, toss them, throw them in the oven, and they would crisp them up really good, and it was awesome. But once you got about 20 pizzas through both ovens, no matter how much, the heat retention would die down a little bit. Our ticket times got a little extensive. I'll never forget the first day when we did that. So we get to the farmer's market, and we were the first new food vendor that had been there in I think in a while, 6, 7 months, maybe a year. And they were all really nice. But one of the food vendors came over, and she's like, "Hey, you're new," and she's like, "I'm such and such," and she's like, "No hard feelings." She's like, "But if no one comes to your tent to get your food, don't feel bad." She's like, "Everyone's used to like what they're used to here." She's like, "So don't." And at first I was like, "That's fucked up," like like kind of
Right.
hazing me a little bit. But she was like, she ended up being awesome. We became friends, but she wasn't wrong. So I remember when we first opened, by 20 minutes into the event, there was nobody. No one showed up. They were all going to the other food trucks and vendors. And I'm like, "Man, this sucks." So I'm like, "All right, well, I'm gonna make myself a pizza." So I was like, "I might let it go to waste." So I made one, and then when I was about to cut into it to eat it, someone had walked by, and they were like, "Oh shit, you like make legit looking pizzas? Like these look pretty good." And I was like, "Yeah." And they're like, "You want it?" He's like, "Yeah." I was like, "Here, you can just have it, man." She was like, "Sweet, thanks." And I almost gave him, and I actually still use this strategy today. And I almost put it in a box for him, but something told me don't do that. They were like, just give it to him on a plate. So I gave it to him on a plate, and he walked around with it. And within 10 minutes, we had a line of 50, 60 people, and we sold out in the next hour. And I was like, and we started, it was crazy. Even my ticket system there, we had it was a 10 by 10 tent with like the two poles, and we
Yeah.
had a piece of paracord that we had tied around it, and I had clothes hangers, and we had just paper tickets. So then my wife would like write the order, and she would just put it on the ticket, and I would just take the string and yank it, and then pull the ticket and punch it when it was done. And it was just a line, and we had like hour wait times. It was crazy. And I remember packing up, and the lady that had talked to me in the beginning, she was like, "Are you done?" I was like, "Yeah, we sold out." And she was like, "Holy shit!" She was like, "That's okay." And then we pretty much sold out every day we were open, actually for the whole season. So I was like, "Man, maybe we got something." And then COVID hit, and I remember it was right before COVID really had happened. We were at a bar, at a brewery, Fort George actually. It's a really cool brewery if you ever get out that way. And I was like, what if we got out? Like, what if we got out of the military and we just decided to make pizzas? It was like a funny little thing. My wife's like, let's do it. I wasn't expecting her to say that. I'm like, no, no, military benefits, we should stay in. But he's always been like, let's do it. Like, we got this. I was like, "Phil, all right." So we started looking into the logistics of all of that, what that would look like. And I was like, "Yeah, we could do this." And at the time, we were thinking like, we can go back to Florida. It'd be easy. I have a lot of connections there, a lot of family. My uncle actually owns a brewery, Bully Brewing in Central Florida. Awesome, awesome brewery if you ever make it to Central Florida. And I was like, we could set up shop there. Like it would be great. And then she was like, okay. She's like, but I want to travel across the country first. I want to take like a week or two. And I was dreading that because we made the drive from Florida to Oregon when we moved there in like 4 days, and I was like, never again. I'm not. This is terrible. Like, we'll hire a hiring company, a moving company. I'm not doing this. It's like, no, come on, we'll get a little RV, because we were doing a lot of overlanding and camping at the time, so we love that stuff anyways. We're gonna do all,
Yeah.
try and see some national parks. So she was like, we'll just get a small little RV, and she works remote, and at the time she did as well. So I was like, okay. I said, but where are you going to work out of? Out of the tiny little RV? And we had a cat at the time, and she was like, well, okay, maybe we get a bigger one. I was like, okay. So then, this little long story short, this little tiny RV where he ended up turning into a 40-foot fifth wheel, and I was like, God dang, okay. And we looked at it kind of like this would be our house. Like we'll just live out of it. It's cheaper than a house, and this can give us some extra money to maybe get the food truck when we get there instead of buying a house. Little did we know, RVing is not cheap. Very, very expensive. So then the little week or two turned into a month of traveling. That month turned into 2 years of traveling the country. So we went around the country 3 or 4 times. Was it 3, 4 times? Went to almost every state, almost all the national parks. And that's kind of what we knew we would never settle in Florida, but we just really didn't know where we wanted to live. Some of her family's in Tennessee, the Carolinas. So, and I've always loved the Carolinas. So I was like, oh, we could, venture up there. So then we ended up passing through we went to Glacier actually, went through there and came through here a couple times, the Flathead Valley a couple times, and absolutely fell in love with it. Everything about it, the people, the environment. But weirdly enough, the weather. I love the weather. And then when we left, we were traveling back to Florida, and we just couldn't get out of our heads. And we were like, okay, we need to find a place to kind of live. So we are looking at houses in Tennessee, North Carolina, Florida, and nothing was, I mean, beautiful places too, on the lakes, on the rivers, and nothing just, I was like, yeah. I was like, let's just look in Montana. Let's just peek over and let's just see what the Flathead Valley has. And we started looking, and it was like, holy shit, this is awesome. We have to get back out here. So we did. Packed up our stuff, bought some property, built a house, and then we just opened up the food truck this May, which it's been so awesome. The truck has been taking off way faster than I thought. A lot of little bumps on the way, but it's been great. I know we kind of veered off there from where I kind of fell in love with food there, but yeah.
No, I mean, it's quite the journey, and that's what people wanna hear, like, they wanna know how you transition from the excuse me, transition from the military out to cooking. Was there kind of a crossroads? Because I kinda wanna just get an idea before we get into what you've been making and your process on the dough and everything. What was that like? Like, did you have a moment where you're like, besides deciding to go into food, were you, cooking before? Like what kind of thoughts did you have while you're in the military and you're like, this is great, but I'm not totally fulfilled, like cooking might be my total fulfillment. Like, did you have a moment where you're like, man, that's what I should be doing? Or was it just you enjoyed both?
So it started. It's funny you say that. So it started off with just pure enjoyment. I never thought I would be owning a place to cook myself, whether it's a restaurant, food truck, whatever. Never thought that would happen. But I've always loved cooking. I've always had a passion for it, I guess, or like it's just come naturally to me in a weird way. And I know that some people say that, like, oh no, you have to be taught everything. Or I kind of believe that, and I kind of don't, because I've worked with some people who have been to culinary school. They get out, they start cooking, and they'll burn water, and it's like they don't. It's like something isn't. I feel bad saying that, but there was a guy I actually had worked with in the Coast Guard, and he was like that. I mean, he could tell you everything out of a textbook. I mean, he was one of the smartest people I've met when it came to nomenclature, mother sauces, all this stuff he could tell you. But man, he just couldn't execute. Um, and it was really funny because when he would go on leave, because we did sometimes we did like morale events, we have like barbecues or something like that. I'd always cook. I'd always cook everything, and I always bring in a volunteer to do it, bring in my pizzas and stuff like that. And this was almost every unit I was at. And I remember when he would go on leave, people were excited because they're like, "Oh, dude, Jacob, he's gonna cook now, so like, it's gonna be okay." So like so that actually happened a lot. A lot of my units when the cook would go on leave, and it would be funny because we'd have like big projects working. We had to do an engine rebuild or something like that. But if the cook was on leave, my boss, my chief didn't care. He was like, "Hey, look, you go in the kitchen, like we need a good meal, like go do your thing." So it kind of I didn't really see it that way. It was just like, oh, like I know how to throw some shit
Yeah.
together. But I guess every time it took a while for me to realize that, like, oh man, like maybe I've kind of got something. Maybe I am. This is kind of like a weird gift I didn't realize I possibly could have. And the pizza thing really kind of solidified that for me. So, I mean, even to this day, though, I don't. When people are like, "Oh man, you've got some of the best pizza I've had," I'm like, that still sounds weird. I don't believe it, right? Because I didn't go to culinary school. I didn't have some professional teaching me how to do these things. So it's like, how do I have something so great, visibly, when people have been doing this for years? So that's still kind of new to me. Like I'm still very humble about it. Like I don't think I have the best product. I don't, but I do try and I do love what I do. And I think there's a point that when you realize and you get enough feedback and you can feel the passion you have for something, it's like, just do it. Just go and do it. I think we all become our own worst enemies at times. And you see that a lot in the military. A lot of people want to get out. A lot of people are afraid to get out, and I kind of get why. I mean, the military holds your hand through a lot of things, and it becomes scary when you get out. It's like, oh, by the way, you've got all these new bills you've got to pay. You've got medical insurance. You've got all this stuff, and it's like, ooh, let me pump the brakes there for a second. Let me knock it out. All right, but man, it was the best decision I ever made. Like, I love the Coast Guard. It was awesome. I have no regrets. I don't know if I would do it again, but it was everything we did was awesome. It was met so many people. It was a great time, but I'm so glad we took the chance to do what we did. And I remember like when we were doing like test pizzas or selling them to people, I'd be like, hey, give me your honest opinion. Like, I need you to be honest because if this sucks, I'm risking a lot.
Yeah.
Because family, I mean, they say they'll never lie, but family will always tell you your shit's good, right? They want to support you, but it's like, no, if this tastes like shit, I need to know. Like, right? Like, I don't need to
Right.
risk all of them. But it just we kept getting really good feedback, and we decided to take the chance and do it. And once we, got the truck up and running, and we saw real feedback and stuff, I was like, man, maybe this is maybe. And it's still nervous today. Like, I'm always worried that someone's gonna have a bad experience, and I'm always worried that like the hype is gonna end, or like it's a wave you're riding. I don't know if that ever ends for any business owner, but it is nerve wracking. But I think for anyone out there who's like thinking about doing it, man, just do it. Just do it. No one, just go for it.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, that was a question I had for you for later, but like, especially guys or gals transitioning out of the military, we'll get into that. You can give them some advice towards the end. get us into your food. I mean, your pizza's awesome. I've had it multiple times. I had heard about it from a friend, and when you just started, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna get to them. And I moved to the valley almost a year ago, and just starting to explore what's here.
Yeah.
And yes, and I'd heard about your. They're like, you got to go to Fire and Dough. You got to go to Fire and Dough, and I'm like, okay,
That's
all
awesome,
right.
man.
And yeah, because I mean, also it is a community of people that are creating their own stuff, and so like the word gets out pretty fast in that community, especially the food truck
Yeah.
community itself. And so it's kind of hyper focuses there. And then I was like, holy smokes, my wife and I went over and we're like, dude, this is awesome. So I think what you're talking about when you're creating something that's undeniable and it's good, people are gonna show up, and people are gonna enjoy it. So tell us what you're doing on the truck. I know you got an awesome setup, you got an oven, you got that press that you were showing me about the
Yeah.
dough. And then, tell us your process with the dough. I'm sure that was like a very arduous situation. I told you, I've talked to Lars Smith of State of
Yeah.
Mind
That was,
Pizza.
yeah.
Yeah, Lars is very good, but also he's done a lot of R&D to get it where it's at,
Yeah.
and there's always these little tricks that you were talking about. Like, he'll put, lately he's been putting out some nice informational videos that of some of the things he's doing. One of the things I saw him do is he takes this squirt bottle, but it's not filled with
Air.
anything. Yeah, and
Yeah.
he'll air the bottom just to kind of right
Yep.
before it goes in, before he slides it in the oven, just to kinda give it a little oomph to get it off the
Off the
peel,
peel. Yeah.
And then little things like, I think he was talking about putting a little bit of breadcrumb when there's mushrooms on the pizza to kinda soak up a little bit more moisture.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. Things like that, so, like, it's pretty neat to see how you guys pick up different techniques. Because yeah, the first time he probably put mushrooms on, he's like, "Oh god, it's got,
Yeah. They sweat.
water
They
I got
slip
water
on.
everywhere." Yeah. I got and that's nobody really likes a soggy pizza. I don't know anyone that does. I'm sure,
Right.
the one slice guy, Mr. Portnoy, doesn't like a soggy pizza either.
Yeah.
So, you like that undercarriage.
Right.
But
Right.
yeah, tell us what you got going on. We'll go over your menu and stuff, but like, tell us what that process was like to create the dough and figure out how you're gonna make everything inside that box, basically.
Yeah, no, it definitely starts with the dough. In my opinion, a good pizza is the foundation, right? Like, so it's the dough and the sauce, right? That's on every pizza. So people always ask me that, like, oh, how do you judge a good pizza? Like, go get a margarita. Like, if the margarita pizza is good from a pizza place, everything else will be good because they're throwing toppings on. And 90% of pizza places don't make their toppings. They just, they buy them, which I'm not saying is a bad thing, but if the foundation is good. So that was what something I really focused on was that when I eat this, I want the bread to be, I want the dough to be good, the crust to be good, and that's my margarita is one of my best selling pizzas, which to me is a huge compliment. We even have like parents will come up and be like, "My kid just ate the crust of your pizza." That never happens, and that's huge. That took me a long time to get to. So when we started messing around with different dough recipes, I really kept it simple. And so Neapolitan style, for anyone who doesn't know, and when I say that, there are different, obviously, all kinds of styles. You've heard of New York style, Chicago style. There's different fermentation ways to do those, which is biga. And then you have like Neapolitan style. There's focaccia pizza, which is one of the oldest pizzas in the world. I think with Neapolitan being second, I could be wrong about that. Anyways, but so Neapolitan style, traditionally, the basis of it is that you have to cold ferment a dough for 24 hours. You're only allowed to use, which I'll go into that. You're only allowed to use four ingredients, which is water, salt, yeast, and flour. And then you have to cook it in an oven that gets to at least 880 degrees. So we cold ferment for 3 days, 72 hours. We never miss a beat on that. If I can't beat 72 hours, then we either won't open or we just don't do it. And I have had a 48-hour dough, but I noticed the difference. If I can notice the difference, I don't want to push that out. It is pretty minimal. But I'll explain why I like 72 versus 48. But so you have four ingredients. You have to cook it. We cook at 950 degrees. We cold frame it for 3 days. And so yeah, we fell in love with the process of that. So once we got our flour down, what kind of flour we wanted to use, we realized that protein content is super important in flour. And then protein kind of correlates to your glutamine and gliadin molecules in flour. When you mix those, I could be pronouncing that wrong, but when you mix those two with water, you come up with gluten, right? And gluten is extremely important in pizza if you're making Neapolitan style. And gluten, you can think about it as the elasticity of dough. So when you see these people like stretch dough out and you do the window pane test, that is because you have mixed gluten and gliadin together so well that you have increase the glycemic index to make a good gluten structure that when you pull the window pane test, it doesn't tear. You want that in Neapolitan pizza because, and you can only get that from a good high protein content of flour. So that's why we use a Tipo 00 Neapolitan style flour from the Caputo family. So, and what I look for is that to have a good gluten content and then to have that good elasticity and that good structure, when you cook it in a 950-degree oven, the air inside the dough instantly reacts. And it creates those giant little bubbles that you see everywhere. If you didn't have a good gluten content, they would pop immediately. And that's when you end up, or if you cook it at a low temperature, they'll pop immediately. Or they won't just get as big as fast. And that's why when you see most pizzas, when you cut into them, if you look in the crust next time, or any bread really, you'll see a bunch of million tiny, tiny little holes, like a white bread that you get at the store. With Neapolitan pizza, that doesn't happen. All the bubbles get really, really big and they go all over the place. If you didn't have a good gluten content, those bubbles would pop. So that's where that comes from. And then as far as the fermentation goes, the longer you allow those gas bubbles to happen, the better they will be. And the texture changes, becomes a little more chewy, it dissolves a little bit better, which hydration helps with that too. So when we experimented with dough, I had heard like, oh, you gotta do 24 hours. So we did it. I was like, oh, that's good. And I was like, what happens if you just ferment for longer? And I tried to look that up, and people are like, oh, you can do like 5, 6, 7 days, which is that's kind of ridiculous. But so we did a 24-hour batch, we did a 48-hour batch, we did a 72-hour batch, we did then 4 or 5 days, whatever. And we just tested and cooked them all the same, all margaritas, and we wanted to see what the texture was, the bite. I mean, we got kind of nerdy with it, like how many chews it took for the pizza to dissolve in your mouth, how many bites, what the pressure of the bite was on the crust when eating the back end of it, like. So we really fell in love with that 72-hour mark. 48 hours is fine, it's good, right? But when you really get into 72 hours, it really dissolves very, very well. Anything past 72 hours, in my opinion, it becomes a little chewy and has more of a little bit more of a pull to it when you bite into the dough. So I didn't really want that. I wanted it to have that kind of that sweet middle in between. So that's where we landed on 72-hour cold fermentation. And why cold fermentation is important. Um, And we do everything cold. What I mean by that is like when we get our water and we're mixing our dough, we use ice cold water. I don't want the yeast to wake up. I don't want it to bloom. I don't want it to activate. And the reason being is because yeast is affected by temperature, wakes up around, I don't know, I think it's like 60 degrees or something like that. And then it dies off around, you can kill it around 110. But the enzymes that naturally occur in flour and dough aren't affected by temperature. When they break themselves down, they create natural occurring sugars. And we get that compliment a lot. She's like, oh man, your dough is kind of sweet. We don't add any sugar to our dough. It's literally flour, salt, yeast, and water. That's it. And so when we cold ferment, we instantly take the dough out of the mixer, we put it in a dough container, and we stick it in the fridge immediately. And we let it go for 48 hours. Once 48 hours is done, we take it out. We make individual dough balls really quickly at 250 grams. We weigh them out, and then we put them back in a dough crate. And we stick that crate back in the fridge at another 24 hours, and that goes into the next day for when we serve the pizza. So the natural enzymes in sugar that aren't affected by temperature, they break themselves down into sugars. So the yeast that's there is asleep potentially, kind of. So it's just kind of sitting there and not really doing a whole lot, not really active, but it's surrounded by sugar. And if you know anything about fermentation, even beer, or yeast reacts to sugar. When it eats those sugars, it breaks itself down and creates like CO2 or gas bubbles. And that's where you get your gas bubbles in dough or any kind of bread. The trick is to holding on to those bubbles and not allowing them to escape, burst, or whatever. And that's where your gluten, your protein content, the glycemic index, that's where all that comes in at. Technically, the longer you ferment, the glycemic index actually reduces, but the elasticity remains. So that's why a lot of people that have gluten intolerances, they come up and they eat our pizza, they have no problem. And I think a lot of it has to do with where we get our flour and how it's produced. But we can go into that later if you want. But so that whole scientific thing of dough really kind of opened my eyes of like, man, this is really an art. Learning how to do pizza in this way, or really anything, right? It's just it's such an art you fall in love with. So we did that. We fell in love with the 72-hour dough, and it cooks beautifully. The texture is beautiful. Then we started messing with hydration percentages. And I actually just got back from Italy a few weeks ago, and we went to a pizza place, and I was so nervous because I had never been. And I was like, man, I'm really curious, like how close my pizza is to some of this. And I will not, toot my own horn, but I will say I've never trying Italy pizza and then making it here. It's pretty damn good. Like it's pretty close. But there was one pizza place we went to, and it blew me away. They advertise they use the same flour we do too, and it's Neapolitan style. They cook in beautiful Munini ovens, and I had it. I was like, holy shit, this dough is amazing. Like it's way better than mine. Like this is crazy. Like how did they? The only thing and the dough just melted in your mouth. The only thing I could think of was they just used a higher hydration. Because like I said, you only got four ingredients to work with, so it's got to be
Right.
something within those. And the yeast content usually isn't the answer. Salt can be, but salt is really just there for a touch of flavor, browning, and then actually helps with the delay of fermentation a little bit. So we actually use a little bit of a higher than normal salt percentage than most dough recipes, but that's because we ferment for so long. So when we got back from Italy, I actually altered my dough recipe and I increased my hydration. So we run a 72% hydration right now in our dough. It's I love it. I got a little ambitious and I jumped it all the way to 80%, and I don't know how people mess with that. I've seen videos of people doing like 80%. I mean, it's a mess. It's so hard to handle. It's everywhere. It droops all over the place. It's crazy. That 72% really was awesome. I was dialing that back by 1% at a time. And I went through like, I think, well, yeah, almost like 10 variations of it until we got it to like, okay, the consistency is perfect. And the way it cooks in the oven now is a little bit different. It's just beautiful. It's a full circle of like, man, this is the thing you created is great. So the dough, yeah, the dough takes a while to learn. Same thing with the sauce. Fell in love with the foundation of the sauce. Used, like I said, San Marzano tomatoes with a very minimal spice blend, just to give it a little bit of an oomph to it. And I mean that's kind of the dough process. And then you talked about the dough press. So some of the things we use in the truck, which is we have a pizza peel turner, pizza peel launch, and then our oven. So we use a Fontana Forni, which is made in Italy. They ship them over here, and then they distribute them out. Actually, that was kind of a big deal when we got the trailer, because these big brick ovens, when you put them in food trucks, there's two problems with them. One, they're heavy as hell. A small brick oven can weigh 1,000 pounds. Like it's ridiculous.
Right.
So I was like, that's gonna weigh on the trailer pretty bad, and it's towards the tongue. I said, so I have a Tundra, so I'm already what I have now is close to its max towing capacity. No way it would tow my trailer with the brick oven. So Fontana Forni does something that's pretty interesting. It's all stainless steel, but they insulate the walls very similar to a brick oven. So if you ever seen a brick oven made, usually they have the bricks, they put this mortar stuff all around it, stick and wire, and then they pack it with super thick, almost like a fiberglass insulation. And it just traps all that heat in there. They do the same thing. They run really thick stainless steel walls, excuse me, and then they put I mean, my insulation walls are like really thick. And it's huge insulation, and they cap it and dome it with another stainless steel piece of metal, and then they paint it and everything. And the oven is a beast. I mean, we've ran that oven. We've probably run 4,000 pizzas through now, 5,000 pizzas through it, and it's been awesome. We can cook 4 at a time, and it is a hybrid. We get asked that a lot too, like, oh, is it wood fired or propane? And I was like, we can do both. We choose to run propane. The reason being is because the oven is too small to run. If I were to put a fire in there, I'm only able to cook 2 pizzas at a time. And that's actually it's funny because that's kind of a misconception with Neapolitan pizzas or wood-fired ovens. Like, oh, you got to have wood. You don't, because the pizza's only in there for 90 seconds. You're not getting any wood flavor or taste from that. And then when a wood oven is up to temp, ready to cook, There's no smoke. There shouldn't be any smoke. That oven gets so hot that when it's ready, all the soot on the roof goes away. And that's when you know it's ready. And then the smoke is done. It is so hot, the wood, the logs just incinerate. And it's just pure. The only time that you'll get taste from a wood oven is if a piece of bark or a knot pops and you get a wood chunk on your pizza and you eat it. That's the only time you'll, which is not a great taste, by the way.
Right.
That's the only time you'll taste that. So, and propane is just, it's easier, man. I can dial the temperature. If it gets too hot, I can control it down. If it gets too cold, I can kick it back up. With wood, not only are you fighting the battles of pizza, you're fighting the battles of the wood. The wood dies down now. You've got to launch another log in there. You've got to preheat the log by putting it in the back of the oven. You've got to fold it. When you're building the new set, you can't have pizzas in the oven because then ash goes everywhere. So when we're at festivals and events, man, we're pumping out, two, three, 400 pizzas. It just don't have time to mess with them. And at first I thought that was gonna like discredit me, like, oh man, I gotta use wood. And then the more and more you talk to people that own pizza places, like, no, you don't use
Yeah.
wood. Like it's cool to look at. They're like, we'll have one running just for show. He's like,
Yeah.
but it's just a pain in the ass, man. He's like, and you're out, you don't get any wood flavor. It's only in there for 90 seconds. There's no time for any kind of smoke or flavor to absorb into the crust. It's in and out. So I'm like, yeah, fair. And then the biggest thing in our truck that is a huge, it's practically an employee, is our dough press by Morello Forni. It's called a Pizzarella, and it's such a unique piece of equipment. So when you hand stretch Neapolitan dough, it's really important to start in the center and you work your way out. I'm sure you've seen videos of that online, and you don't want to crush the crust around. So even when you do that slot method and stuff like that, the stretching, you're never breaking that crust line. I always when I train people that like the outer crust rim, you don't really touch it. And I kind of like, draw, you can kind of see it. Typical dough presses that you buy are borderline tortilla presses, really. Like and you'll see them, they look like rolling pins that you can put the dough in and it just flattens the whole thing out. Or it's a big press you pull down and it just squishes the whole thing like a tortilla.
Right.
And the problem with that is Neapolitan is you push all of the air out of it. Pizza won't rise correctly in the oven. You've practically killed that crust, and it's just not great. But Morello Forni came out with a pizza press that is kind of hard to explain. I know you've seen that, but it's like it's a bladder system on the bottom. It's like a, I don't know how to explain it, but it's flexible. And underneath that little bladder vinyl rubber thing has these like massaging balls with a rotator on it. And when you bring the top piece down, what it does is it works in the middle and it has these balls that rotate and it pushes its way out. But it never gets too far out where it crushes the crust. And if you go on my Instagram, you'll see me, I kind of talk about it. So when you pull it off, I mean, and it does it in like 5 seconds, depending on the temperature of the dough. I mean, like we're halfway through service, then the dough has gotten to a good room temp. I mean, you hold it down 2 seconds, it's done, and you go out and you pass it down the pass, and they're building it. And it's really really quick. So that thing alone is amazing. That brought my ticket times down tremendously. That was one of my biggest fears. It still is, even though I think we're pretty quick. So it was ticket times. So now our average ticket times on pizza, if there's no way, if you come up to the window, it's like 3 minutes, maybe 4 minutes. I can get a pizza out, stretch it, build it, cook it, rest it, cut it, and give it to you. It's about maybe 4 minutes. So that pizza press is awesome. Same thing with our POS system, because I'm the only one in the truck most of the time. So we have a self-serving kiosk. So when someone comes up, it's the big old touch screen. I love talking to people, so I talk to everybody. And as they're ordering, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I want to get a pepperoni," and they start touching it, and they see the pictures, I'm already making the pizza. So by the time they click it and my KDS, which is my kitchen display screen, pops up and the receipt goes off, that pizza's in the oven, and 90 seconds later they got it. They're like, wow, so all the stuff we built the truck, we really tailored around to me working in there as an individual, or if we hire someone, they can become good enough to be by themselves as well, or two people can be in there and it's helpful as well. So yeah, those are some of the equipment that we have that I really enjoy.
Well, let's get in the menu. You already talked about the margarita. You've got pepperoni, of course. Tell us about the white copa, big pig, kicking pig. And
Yeah.
then I got to try the other day. You kind of slid in there. You're like, oh, you should try the honey ricotta dipper, which is a unique thing that I've never had. So tell us about all those different items on your.
Yeah, so the pepperoni margarita. So Those are just your typical red sauce pizzas. Actually, it's funny. People will order a margarita and they'll add pepperoni to it. They think it's a different pizza, but it's not. And I try to explain that to them. Like if you once you add pepperoni to the margarita pizza, it becomes a margarita pizza. And the margarita pizza is a cheese pizza. And you add basil to it. So and that's what makes it a margarita pizza. Not to go into the history of that, but it was named after Queen Margarita a long time ago. And they wanted to incorporate the colors of the Italian flag, which is red, white, and green. And that's what he did. He made it a dough, added red sauce for the red, did the cheese for the white, and he did hand-picked fresh basil on top. And that's where the name of margarita pizza came from. So once you add basil to that, it becomes a margarita pizza. Once you add pepperoni to it, it becomes a pepperoni pizza. So all of our pizzas come with Parmesan Reggiano, olive oil, and fresh picked basil, unless you specifically request otherwise, but they all come with that. I know white sauce pizzas are pretty popular. I'm not the biggest fan of white sauce pizzas, mainly because they're usually super overpowering. Like it's either they have no taste at all, or it's just like getting Alfredo sauce, and that's all you taste. So we want to do a white sauce pizza a little differently. I wanted it to have a good, unique balance, and I really like the way ricotta tastes. To me, it's rich, but it's not overpowering. So our white sauce is a base ricotta with roasted garlic, basil, and olive oil. Just kind of simple, got a little bit of unique taste to it when you bite into it, but nothing that's going to overwhelm or overpower the dough or the toppings we put on it. So our white copa pizza is our white sauce, our fresh mozzarella, and then we put capicolo slices on that. The fig pig, which is the same exact pizza actually, but we add a fig puree and honey to it. So it's like sweet and savory. That's actually one of our best sellers, which is funny because every time we go somewhere new, nobody buys it. It's like they're like fig on pizza, that's disgusting. Like I'm not gonna eat that. And then once people try it, they're like, oh shit, that's pretty good. And then that becomes our number one seller everywhere we go. And then the kicking pig. So we use a Louisiana smoked spice sausage that we put on the pizza, and then we top it with Mike's hot honey at the end. Everyone was asking us for a spicy pizza, like, oh, I just want something a little spicy. So it's funny because I'm a wimp when it comes to spicy stuff, which have a Latin background is kind of funny, but I don't like like I tell people I cap it like Cholula, which is kind of funny. Which is actually I was gonna tell you this. I was in Black Rifle the other day and they had that salt, and I didn't know it was spicy. And Connor was like, "You should just try some of this,"
You
which is
mean
just
this?
super. Yeah, yeah. Didn't know that was made with some of the hottest peppers, and she just did like a dab
Yeah.
and she's like, "Yeah, try this." And that was very flavorful, delicious. Like, holy shit, is that hot? So,
It does
anyways,
have a
so
kick. Shout out to Alex. He is a sponsor of the podcast. So
yeah,
shout out to Firecracker Farm.
no, I mean, the flavor though is awesome.
Yeah, and it's awesome that it's at Black Rifle now too, which is huge for him. So
Yeah,
that'll be getting to all the different Black Rifles as well. But yeah, it is hot. It does take some time. I do have one, the yuzu one. I'll have to bring that one to
I've
you
been
so you
wanting
can
to try
try it.
that. Yeah,
So I'll just have to bring it. I carry it with me now. I started
nice,
carrying it with
nice.
me because we were going to breakfast the other day, and I was like, "Why didn't I bring the salt?"
Yeah,
And I carry some hot sauce too, the Senior Lechuga hot sauce as well. And I
yeah,
was like, I need to start just carrying it around for one for me and my wife, but two for someone else wants to try it. It's there, so that's cool. And then yeah, you got and then tell me about the honey ricotta dipper.
yeah. So I forgot the name of it, and I would butcher it anyways. But there's a Neapolitan pizza sandwich, kind of what how this idea started. So
Right.
you pretty much take the dough, and after you get done stretching it, you put olive oil in the center of it, and you fold it in half. And you do that so it doesn't stick together when you cook it in the oven. Once you cook it, it just puffs up into this beautiful looking thing. And when you pull it out, you can open it up. And we did test this. I didn't tell anyone this because people probably start asking for it, but it's a pain. But we filled one with a bunch of prosciutto, arugula, a balsamic demi-glaze, some chopped Roma tomatoes, and then fresh pulled burrata. And then we chopped it up into a sandwich. We were actually going to put that on the menu.
You should do a special.
Yeah, no, we're still kind of working through that. The problem is
Yeah.
our I kind of made the mistake in a weird way that my food truck I designed it specifically for the way we run things, like our stations, like, and the
Yeah.
flow of things is important to me in the kitchen. So, and I see it so many times in food trucks, and that was actually one of the big reasons why we didn't buy a used one. is they'll have like, the fryers next to the sink, which is also right behind the cashier taking orders, which is also next to like the serving window. And it's like, you're asking for trouble there. So when we designed the food truck, we kind of did the same thing. So like we wanted to be like, oh, if you're stretching dough, this is your station. If you're building on the, it's not really called the pass, but I call it the pass, but on the pass, that's your station. If you're taking orders and serving food, that's your station. If you're cooking pizza, that's your station. And it looks crazy when we're all in there because we're all, almost pretty much shoulder to shoulder, but we don't really have to move anywhere. Like when I'm cooking, all I'd say is when I say oven, like we always yell oven, and that means the pizza peel is, and that's it's a 6 foot stick. That thing's coming out of the thing, and if you touch it at all, the pizza drops. So when I say oven, everyone just knows to like just suck in really quick, and then can come back out. So it works where we're not always like, oh, I need this and I need that, and like everyone's having to cross into their section.
Yeah.
So that being said, with the sandwich thing, when we pull the dough out, it becomes kind of an issue to build it that way. 'Cause now technically I need to take the bread back to the pass and I need to start assembling it again. So I've got to put gloves on this time now because we're handling all ingredients. So it makes the ticket times extend out quite a bit. So unless I was able to build a micro station somewhere, which I probably could actually, we're gonna pull our mixer out when we get a commissary. Now you got me thinking I might be able to do that, and then we could just do the sandwiches right there. So when we did that, I was like, man, this is awesome. I said, but this took way too long to make.
Yeah.
And then we got to take our gloves off. Now our cutting board's got balsamic vinegar on it. And now we can't mix that with other stuff. So like I don't think we can do this. But that's like I love the concept of it. Let's just dial it back. So I was like, the crust by itself was great. I was like, what if we just added a little bit of Parmesan Reggiano into it, a little bit of saltiness, and then we just drizzled it with a light bit of honey, like a little sweet, salt, and savory. So we did that, and then we just cut it. And I was looking at it, and I just held the giant thing up. I was like, this is ridiculous. I'm not gonna just like a gigantic taco. I was like, I'm not gonna eat it like this. So then I just cut it and I just started cutting it. And they came into strips that you can open up and see, or you can open up, tear it, and share it with people, or you just go for the whole thing like I do. And I was like, well, we need a dipping sauce for it. So the white sauce pairs really well with the crust. And so we took a cup of the white sauce and we drizzled it with honey. So now you have our white sauce drizzled with honey, and then you have the bread, which is the dipper. You can dip it in and you can eat it. And I thought when I made it, I was like, this is really fucking good. Like I really like this a lot. So I was like, well, and it's easy. I don't have to backtrack a whole lot. Comes out of the oven. It's on the serving station. So we're just doing honey Parmesan Reggiano, cutting it and serving it. So my ticket times really didn't get delayed. The orders don't get delayed. It doesn't mess up the flow of going backwards and interrupting anything else being made. So that just made sense. So we did it that way. We launched it, and it's done really well. I mean, we sell them all the time. It's pretty
Oh,
cool.
it's super tasty and you're able to play with the ingredients that are already there, so that kinda makes it
Right.
easy for you, right? That
Yeah, exactly.
you're just kind of reversing some stuff around, moving stuff around, and then you're like, it's all there. You just
Right.
different configuration. Really cool. Before you close it out, I got some fun questions for you. I don't know if they're fun, but what's some of the biggest challenges you dealt with, starting your own food service business?
Um, Not knowing anything, I think is like the I don't think that's talked about a lot. Like a lot of people think, oh, I want to open up a restaurant or food truck, and you naturally think all you're going to do is cook, and you're just going to cook and put out dishes, and that's like 30% of your time. I mean, there's so much that goes past that to make it. I mean, so like learning how to open up an LLC, for instance, learning how to file, learning how to knowing you need a bookkeeper, and in the state of Montana you need registered agents. There's so much of a process to like get a business going, and then when you feel like you get it going, it's like, okay, hopefully you don't fall because you just did so much stuff. And I think at the end of the day, it's like, man, that is the biggest challenge. It's just getting it going, getting off your feet, and realizing that it's going to work out. Like it's going to be okay. Just do what you love, man. When you make a product that you can stand by, you're going to have bumps, you're going to have hiccups. Just keep pushing. Just keep going through it, man. Like one of my biggest things a long time ago was that, and I think it stopped me from really from doing anything in my life, was the fear of failure. That was my biggest thing. I was so afraid of failing at whatever I did. I thought because of that, it would make me the best at whatever I did, which was really the complete opposite. You can't have success without failure. They go hand in hand. So now I actually I look for it. I embrace it. Like I see like, okay, if I do this, how will this be a mistake? And I just go make the mistake. I'm like, okay, yep, I was right. I fucked that up. But now you learn, and then you learn from it, right? That's the biggest thing. When you learn from that mistake, you learn not to try to do it again, or you try your best not to do it again, right? And when you get over that bridge, that allows you to just keep going forward. Like, don't be afraid to make the mistakes. And that I think that's the biggest challenge I had, and I think a lot of people have that no one talks about is just the fear of failure. Don't if you fear that failure, you will fail. Don't fear it. Just embrace it, go for it, find it, challenge it, learn from it, and just keep going. And you just do that every single time. And I think you push through it, man. And that was my biggest challenge was changing my mental state of that.
100%. What keeps you motivated?
Probably the people, weirdly enough. Like I like I like serving good food to people. And when I see people eat it and they compliment me and they're like, oh, this is really good, or I love this. Or like, they tell people like you found out because you heard word of mouth. Like that makes me feel great that it's getting out there. And I don't know, man, being in the food truck, working for myself, I probably cooked. I couldn't even tell you how many people I've cooked, but every time I pull one out of the oven, weirdly enough, because sometimes we'll set up a camera and like record myself. I feel like a nerd for this, but every time I pull a pizza, I just smile. I don't know why, but I just love it. I love doing it. I love making it. They're beautiful. So yeah, I think just making and doing something that I love and then being able to share that with people just kind of keeps me going.
Awesome. Advice for veterans starting a business. What would you got a couple things for them because a lot of them, like you said, I was in the law enforcement. A lot of guys look at ideas, while you're on working, and you're like, that would be a cool business, or this would be. I should write a book, and oh, you should make this product. A lot of
Right.
ideas get rolling, sometimes just because you're thinking about the future. What advice do you have?
I would say, and this is going to sound like a very obvious answer, but I used to have a million ideas for things. Write them down and have a business plan in a weird way. And I don't mean a business plan where you need to have some kind of like spreadsheet portfolio, but just write it down. Write down what you want, where you want to be to, and just backtrack from that. And if it just doesn't work out, it's okay. You can move to the next thing. I think another problem a lot of people have is that they get so ambitious to want to do. You see this a lot actually in the restaurant industry, in my opinion, is that you see a lot of people like, oh, I can cook all this stuff. I can do all these things. And it's like, you don't need to do that. You don't need to cook. You don't need to have a menu with 37 items on it. Just do the thing that you love to do, you don't mind doing, and you're good at. And then be the best at that. That's why you see like these chicken places, right? All they sell is fried chicken. The best fried chicken you ever had, right? Because they do one thing and they do it really, really well. Just do that. And when you master that and you think you've done it, then if you want to add something, you can. Just, I think people want to run a million miles an hour and it causes them to be overwhelmed. And then when you start up with a million things, you're like, how do I handle all this? You don't need a million things to be successful. Just do one thing really, really well, and then you will eventually expand on that. And I think it comes naturally. Like maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. But I've noticed through this, and it's funny because my wife now is getting into the food truck, and we actually want to open up another one. And of course, I've been doing this for a little bit, and seeing her in it, it's almost like watching myself. Like I can see her going through all of the motions of like stressing out because we've got 4 tickets on the board. I'm like, look, you got, which is really funny because it's like I was doing the same thing, right? We all do it, and just know that it's all right, man. You just it's okay. Just go for it, do it, fall on your face, laugh about it, get up, and just keep pushing. Like you'll never know until you try. Worst comes, and that's the other thing I'd always tell people, man, is you can always settle. If you get out of the military, you try and open up something, you try and do something, it doesn't work out, go get a job. Like you can always settle and do something. Don't allow that fear to, stop you from doing it. And the other thing with the military is that you don't know this when you're in, which is terrible. You always find this out when you get out. There are so many resources for military vets. Like it's insane. The VA alone has business programs. They have loans you can get. There's so many things. So don't be afraid to reach out, ask questions, talk to friends and family, talk to other vets. You can call people at the VA and just bullshit with them, and they'll just tell you. You may have met a guy there, you know. So we've built so many connections that way that it's just been awesome. There's a lot of resources out there. Just start asking the questions like, how do I do this? What do I do this? Write those down, you know, and try and get them answered, man. And just take one step at a time.
Yeah, and I've met a lot and had a few vets on the podcast that have successful businesses, and reaching out to those guys that are,
Exactly.
a few years in already and kind of gone through the motions of setting things up and then, grew it to a successful business, hitting those guys up. They're open because they know what it's like. So,
Yeah.
talking to those guys as well,
Yeah, and I think that's the thing too is just I'm like, reach out to us. Like if someone were to call me and was like, "Hey, man, I want to open up a pizza place. How do I do that?" Like, I'll shoot the shit with you about it. Like, and I think we're all like that. Like we've all been there. We've all done that. And for me, anyways, like I don't care if somebody calls me and wants some advice. It may work for you, it may not, but at least yeah, I don't mind that at all.
yeah. I got to ask you what your favorite dish is, whether it's something out in the world of all your travels or on the truck.
Man, that's tough. I personally love Islander food, man. Hawaiian, Guam, Japanese food like that, all of that together. I don't know if I can name a favorite dish. Short ribs, I love short ribs. I make those Japanese style. They're awesome. I don't know if I can name a favorite dish, but cuisine wise, Islander food, Japanese food, that's honestly probably my my favorite. Obviously, Cuban food. I miss Cuban food so much. One of my favorite things nostalgia wise, every time I eat one, is those pastries I was telling you about. We make those guava. I'll have to make you one, but those guava con queso pastelitos are they're just awesome, man. Every time I eat one, I just think of growing up in Miami, my aunts, my uncles bringing them over, my grandma making them. It was just those, yeah, probably my favorite.
Yeah. That's the ticket. I mean, that's what I wanna hear, like, and that's what everyone else wants to hear is what brings you back to a time where, you remember it. So that's awesome.
Yeah,
Anything
croquetas
else
is
we
another
don't
one.
Yeah. Anything else we don't know? Any unusual quirks you've picked up over the time with with the truck, and if they come see you, is there anything that they should know or
I think I kind of told all of it,
yeah,
but
I
yeah,
think so. Yeah.
yeah. Sorry, it's
No, it's good. Where do you kinda see yourself in 5 years?
I'd like to have a couple food trucks, and I'd like to have some kind of brick and mortar. I think if we did a brick and mortar, it's going to be a little different. It's not going to be your typical restaurant, sit down, waiters, waitresses. I want to have like some kind of modern fitment container slash building drive through or something you can do on both sides. You can drive through, get the pizzas because the oven I want is actually by Morella 22. You can fit like 16 pizzas in it. It has a rotating deck, and the pizzas go in, they pull them out. So you can cook 16 pizzas technically in 2 minutes. So we want that. We want to have two of those. I want drive-throughs on both sides, or you can come in, order a pizza. We can give it to you. You can sit down, eat, throw your plate away, or maybe have rooftop seating. Same thing somewhere in the Flathead Valley where you can go up, maybe even do something. We have wine selection or something like that. You can just kind of watch the sunset on the mountain pass and just have a good slice of pizza. That is my ultimate goal. I really want to have a place like that, but it's gonna take some time.
That's awesome. And just to close it out, anything you want to promote, the floor is yours, man. I appreciate you being on. All the show notes will be in there for everybody to find you and stuff. The floor is yours. Appreciate you coming on.
I appreciate you having me on, man. This is an awesome opportunity. I love it. Your podcast is great, and really just if you come out, I mean, the menu's there. Just I love talking to everyone. If anyone's got any questions, let me know. Um, yeah, I mean, if you've never had Neapolitan style pizza, I highly recommend it. It is different. It's not the typical pizza you usually get around town. Um, and if you're coming up to the truck, you're nervous because you think the pizza's different, just talk about it. I'd love to give you a pie, see what you guys think.
Awesome. Thanks, Jacob. You can find him on Instagram at fire.and.truck. doe.mt. Here in the Flathead Valley, he's all over the place, especially at Black Rifle, but he's at private events and a bunch of different places all over the valley. Schedule is on his Instagram and Facebook. So thanks, everybody. Thanks, Jacob. We're
Thank you
out.
guys.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.